Things are not quite going to plan. Johann Roder lies against a crumbling wall, his wrists bound behind his back, ankles strapped together tightly. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. When I was young, I loved choose your own adventure game books. You know, those books where your decisions determine the way in which the narrative unfolds and whether you ultimately become a hero or just another lost adventurer in a dark dungeon. However, I am the first to admit that until very recently, it had been a good few years since I had played a gamebook, and after revisiting the classic Warlock of Firetop Mountain, it was a part of my childhood that I had decided I would most likely leave in the past. But I never say never, except for just then when I said it twice. A few weeks ago I was approached by Michael Ward, author of the incredibly successful DestinyQuest series of adventure gamebooks. He was gearing up for a Kickstarter campaign for a brand new series of books called DestinyQuest Raiders, a link for which you can find in the video description below. He wanted to know if I would be interested in playing an exclusive sample and sharing my initial impressions. After learning a little more about the series and what Michael was doing to breathe new life into the genre, I agreed. And so it was I began my adventure in DestinyQuest Raiders, The Tides of Terror. For anybody who has ever played a fighting fantasy gamebook, the basic idea of DestinyQuest Raiders should be very familiar. You are presented with a story during which you will regularly be asked to make a decision. The choice you make dictates the next part of the story. Sometimes you will make good choices and get fantastic rewards. Sometimes you will make poor choices, which at best cause you to miss out on useful items and information, or at worst lead you into perilous and potentially deadly encounters. But Raiders veers away from the idea of putting you in control of a single character through whose eyes you see this fantasy world, instead presenting you with a team of up to 4 characters, all with their own unique personalities, special abilities and mysterious pasts to unravel. And this is a fascinating concept that layers in a much richer style of storytelling. Rather than stepping into the shoes of a character who becomes your avatar, undertaking the actions you instruct them to, you get to come along for the ride with a team of characters you observe from the outside. You don't instantly know everything about these people, and you will learn more as you play, which feels so much more engaging. You get to watch as they bicker and fire snarky quips at each other. You learn about their histories as the story unfolds, and understanding their personalities will help you not only to understand why you are presented with certain options, but which option might be best, or which option you think might be more fun to explore. For example, at the start of the game you have access to just 2 characters. One is Johann Roder, a debonair relic hunter with a magic sword and the innate ability to communicate with rodents. The second is the brave and skilled arcane archer Scarlet Pyre, who is impetuous and loves gold. Early on in the sample I played, these 2 characters were in a chamber lined with ancient statues and runic inscriptions. Johann naturally wanted to spend time examining the surroundings, but Scarlet wanted to press on in search of treasure. The interesting thing here is you now have several ways of approaching that decision. Do you side with the character you feel you have the best connection with, the character that you would play if this was a game of D&D? Do you side with the character who you think has the best understanding of the situation you are currently in? After all, that relic hunter must surely be able to spot important runes in an ancient temple. Do you side with the character who you feel is going to minimise the risks? Rushing off in search of treasure rarely ends well, but poking around in temples and reading runic script comes with its own set of dangers. Or do you simply pick the option that you think is going to be the most fun? Sometimes you can see that one of the characters is making a more foolish play, but maybe a little impetuousness is going to hurl you into a fun confrontation that might lead to big rewards. In other words, rarely will you be presented with an arbitrary choice, such as going left or right at a junction. Instead, you will get options that feel like they have naturally evolved from the story you are experiencing, and as a result, each choice feels engaging. Not once did I feel like I was in a situation where I might as well flip a coin to decide what to do. I always had something to hang my hat on. And it is worth stressing, the 2 protagonists I met in the preview sample were really fun characters to hang out with. They had strong personalities and they did a lot of verbal sparring. While it might be a little cliche to have an odd couple picking at each other for silly mistakes as they gradually gain respect for each other's abilities and learn to trust one another, it's a cliche for a reason. It works. There is no denying it's fun to read the banter, and you do want to see these characters succeed in their adventures. Having a team of heroes also feeds into one of the most exciting aspects of the Raiders series, deterministic, skill-based combat. Rather than rolling dice to resolve combat, each battle is a puzzle for you to solve in the most efficient way possible. You will be presented with an abstract diagram comprising one or more rows of enemies, with each enemy having a number of boxes indicating health points, a strength value, and sometimes a special ability. This diagram, for example, represents 5 goblins arranged in 2 ranks. The goblins in rank 1 have 4 health points each, with the central goblin having a strength of 2, while the goblins on the flanks have a strength of 3. The goblins in the second rank have just 2 health points each, and at the start of the combat they will be unable to strike the heroes because they do not have any ranged weapons that allow them to attack over their allies in rank 1. The heroes form a group at the lower part of the diagram and always start with 30 health points regardless of any previous conflicts and how big the party is. Combat itself is very simple. First, the heroes will attack. They can attack in any order, and they can each use one of their abilities. To begin with, a hero only has access to one basic ability. Johann's basic ability is Slashing Blade, which lets him inflict 2 wounds on any enemy in rank 1. Scarlet's basic ability is Quick Aim, which lets her inflict 1 wound on any enemy in rank 1 or 2. Let's assume Scarlet pings a sneaky gobbo in the back row, and Johann slashes one of the strong goblins in the front row. We mark all that damage on the diagram. Now the monsters strike back. All the monsters in the front row will now attack. Additionally, any monsters further back with access to ranged weapons will also attack. In this example, we are going to take 8 wounds from the goblins in rank 1. We deduct that from our team health of 30, leaving us on 22. Now we attack again. Johann slashes the same goblin, killing it. When this happens, any enemies directly behind the slain enemy will shuffle forwards to fill the space and will be able to start attacking. Fortunately, we saw this coming. Scarlet had already pinged the goblin at the back once, and now she pings it again, removing it from play. Even though there is now a space in the front row, the surviving goblin in rank 2 will not advance. It only advances to fill a space directly in front. That means this time when the goblins activate, we only take 5 damage, leaving us 17 health points. Combat continues in this manner. We attack, we take another 5 damage in return, leaving us on 12, but when we attack again we slay 2 more goblins. We now have just 1 left in play, which hits us for 2, taking us to 10. Then after we hit it for 3, it hits us once more for 2, leaving us on 8, and then we slay the little critter. We are victorious. Now that might seem a little bland and a little easy, but let me tell you, in the sample I played, after the first few scraps, which are indeed rather easy, I got involved in some pretty tense confrontations. I don't really want to spoil too much here, but just take a look at this fight against 4 skeleton guards. These aren't particularly hard-hitting enemies, but some of them have access to special abilities. 2 in the second rank have bows, allowing them to attack even if they aren't in rank 1, and 1 is a magic user that can strengthen the attacks of the enemies directly in front. Assume you are facing these enemies with Johann and Scarlet, who still only have access to their basic abilities. Why not pause the video for a moment and see if you can solve the puzzle? There is a way to do it. Just remember, Johann can inflict 2 wounds, but only on rank 1. Scarlet can only inflict 1 wound, but can apply the damage to rank 1 or 2. And enemies will instantly advance to fill a rank if the enemy directly in front is slain. Sometimes it may happen that you wander into a fight you aren't prepared for, and no matter how efficient you are, you won't survive. Fortunately, your team has other advantages. In addition to finding useful weapons and magical items that may be able to give you the edge in combat, at the start of the game you are awarded 3 life gems. You can use a life gem on your turn to immediately restore 10 health points to your team. This may be just enough to get you through the fight. However, if the worst happens and you are defeated, you can instantly use a life gem to reset the battle. Your party is restored to life, but so too are the enemies you have already defeated. Additionally, while I couldn't find it specified in the rules, I'm pretty sure that any one-use items you may have used in the combat aren't restored either, so this really is a last resort. Of course, tougher foes require more powerful skills, and as you gain experience points, you can spend them to unlock new powers for your heroes. During my sample playthrough, I acquired 5 experience points, which is enough to unlock one ability for one hero. I gained these experience points in different ways, sometimes for doing something clever, and sometimes for doing something dumb. Experience, after all, comes in many forms. Sometimes you will gain a point of experience for finding something special, sometimes just for kicking a powerful monster's teeth out. Often, it felt to me like these experience points were rewards for being particularly adventurous, and I found that making a choice that I knew was going to lead to trouble was often rewarding. Yes, I was putting myself in a precarious situation, but at the end of it, I had a fresh story to tell and another experience point to spend. Each character has 2 abilities to unlock. For example, Johann can spend 4 experience points to unlock Swiping Claw, which lets him deal 3 damage to a monster in rank 1. He can also save up 8 experience points to gain Leaping Strike, which deals 1 damage to any monster in rank 1 and prevents that monster from dealing any damage this turn. Scarlet can spend 4 experience points to gain Piercing Arrow, which deals 2 damage to a monster in rank 1 and then 1 damage to each monster directly behind the first target. She can spend 8 experience points to gain Scattershot, which deals 2 damage to all monsters in rank 1. As you can see, these new abilities are very powerful, but unfortunately you are only allowed to use each of them once per battle. The combination of knowing when to use your abilities, when to use special items and life gems, and determining which order to attack the enemies makes each combat a fun puzzle to unravel with a lot of tactics to consider, and this is a refreshing new approach to combat for this type of gamebook. During my time playing the Tides of Terror, I enjoyed a variety of different experiences. I had numerous fights, some easy, some less so. I found several magical backpack items, which are generally for use during combat. Each of your characters can only carry a maximum of 2 at any one time, sometimes forcing you to make tough choices about which ones to discard. I also found several regular items, which are added to a general inventory without limitation. I solved a puzzle where I had to determine the answer to a riddle and then convert that answer into a numeric value, which told me which paragraph to read next in the book. I talked to various NPCs, made some bad choices, and ultimately made it to the end of the demo. However, while I technically completed the sample, I definitely didn't see everything the sample had to offer. At numerous points I was unable to progress down certain paths or select certain options because I was missing vital items. Items I clearly would have had if I had made different, possibly better choices. I feel like I could play the sample again, taking a different route and have a completely different adventure. And that's exactly what you want from a good fantasy adventure. An experience where it feels like your choices have weight and meaning, and where there is always something new just around the corner. Overall, I think it was a very enjoyable introduction. If I had to be picky, I would say I noticed a few grammatical errors and there were a few sections that didn't seem to flow well together, but I was reading an early draft that is going to be considerably tightened up in future edits. I also felt that, despite liking Johann and Scarlet and never being bored in their company, the introduction to the story was just a little too long. The same argument could probably also be levelled at some other sections of text, where it feels like it takes just a fraction longer than necessary to get to the next decision point. Whether you agree, I imagine, will depend on how engrossed you are in the plot and how much you enjoy learning about the characters in the team and seeing their relationships develop. It's certainly no bad thing to try to make the storyline as compelling as the gameplay, but good pacing is essential, and I am sure that is something that will be continually balanced and refined during the final editing process. But I guess that's about all I have to say about that. The Kickstarter for DestinyQuest Raiders goes live on Tuesday the 24th of October 2023, and if what I've said here has got you interested, you might want to check it out. There's a link in the video description below. All that's left is for me to thank Michael for giving me an opportunity to check out the exclusive sneak peek, and to thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully, I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone, bye bye.